And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo Woo. This episode we're going to do another one of the monthly question and answer sessions that we do where patrons over on Patreon send me some questions and I answer them to the best of my ability, given that of course they're just my opinions, and as always other opinions are always available. And we also do one card 47 divinations once a month over on Patreon, where people send in something that's going on in their life or something they need some insight about. I pick a card and then explain what that card would mean in relation to the question they asked. So if you want to get in on that, just head over to Patreon. The link is in the show description. So we'll get into these straight away. So we have Abraxas starting us off. We talked about recently about misinformation on Crowley. Would you say we're creating modern mythologies around famous people and events, and what role do you think that plays? I would say we can't help but doing that. We are a symbolizing, generating, meaning-making form of life, and that there's just no way around that kind of thing. And we also know, of course, that that whole kind of thing that someone has spent their entire life being a terrible person, and then all of a sudden, as soon as they're dead, they kind of turn into an angel, or the best kind of version of them is spoken about, at least for a while anyway. Or you're not allowed to speak ill of the dead. So you have this kind of sacredness that we add to, I suppose, in a sense, even bad people, or some sort of level of hardship or whatever that we've gone through. For the good old days, we could kind of have this kind of feeling that there's some reward in hardship or something like that. But I was reading something interesting, and I can't work out where exactly I read it, but I'm sure someone will point out something very recently. And it was just saying that it's hard to even realize that, does even the idea of celebrity exist? Do celebrities exist? And not in the kind of way that, of course exist, because we can see them, we can point at them, we know what we're talking about. But in the sense of that they don't actually exist as real people. They're kind of almost like servitors. Or they're almost, they're just kind of a magical version that doesn't really exist. And when the whole thing of when you meet your heroes, that they turn out to be completely different from what you hoped or expected, often in a very bad, negative way. You hear people going, "Oh, he's a real asshole," or "She was a real asshole." And there's a Dave Navarro song from his solo album, Trust No One, which is, unless you're into Dave Navarro, you probably would never listen to it. But and it's the line is, "I want the life you think I have." So it's kind of a nod to that. There's a Dave Navarro, public eye, persona, made up person, servitor in a sense. And then there's the real person is a very different person. And is a human behind it all, and doesn't have the kind of glamour, doesn't have the glitz, doesn't have the glamour in the magic sense too as well around him. So I think we have this kind of idea, we try to idolize people in the sense, or we try to put some sort of divinity onto these people. And because we were becoming more and more secular, and because we've lost an awful lot of faith in religion, and rightly so, given, particularly here in Ireland, given the amount of stuff that's coming out about what kind of religious orders and religious people have done over not even that distant of a past, you can understand why people are disenfranchised and disenchanted by religion. And rather than kind of the ability to separate the people, the institutions from the belief, we kind of have to, in a sense, overcompensate and just get rid of it all, I think, for a while. So what we need something in its place. Where are our saints? Where are our gods? Where are the people that we look up to? Where are the equivalent of our Greek gods? While we have them in fiction, in like kind of superheroes and stuff like that, and that's become very, very popular as over the last while. The more secular we get, the more kind of the rise of the Marvel superheroes movie franchise and stuff like that. But the rise of celebrity, the rise of celebrity chefs, and everything's about celebrity. Everything kind of gets elevated. It's the new religious experience rather than becoming a better person or going through the great work of the magician. It's just 15 minutes of fame, or where it's all about. It's not about who you are as a person. It's about what what other people think you are as a person. So what role do I think that plays? I think it's a temporary role, possibly. Some would suggest that this is the type of thing that the end of a civilization looks like, in that, I've heard Alan Chapman say it, that at the end of the Roman civilization, chefs became very famous, the whole idea of celebrity chef. And you can only have a celebrity chef when people are, I suppose, not in starvation mode for the most part, you know, that the general populace has enough food and they're looking for a new way to prepare food rather than just get the food, you know. So when you've got to the stage in a society where you can make a chef a celebrity because people are interested in, you know, the wide kind of arrangement of how to have food, rather than, like, to say in the Irish family where you had, you know, so little food that you had to leave the country or whatever. You're not going to get celebrity chefs around that time, so it could be a kind of a sign of the end of civilization. But I think it's kind of a temporary way, and probably the New Age movement was a bit of a try, you know, kind of a way of trying to bridge the gap between the old religions, the old Ion, and the new Ion, whatever it is, you know, speaking of Crowley, you know, the age of Horus, the child. And yeah, so I mean, things don't, even if it is the end of an era or an Ion or a civilization, you know, it doesn't just, unless of course we blow ourselves up or do something quite drastic and new. It'll be a gradual kind of thing, and I think it is kind of temporary. But I think celebrities and that kind of stuff is around for a while, and the cult of personality and all of that, but probably less so as it goes forward. You know, people are getting so sick of social media and everyone having an opinion that should be, that, you know, is kind of demanded to be as accepted as a, you know, an actual educated opinion. I think that's, people get a bit sick of that, and a bit sick of experts and celebrities talking outside of the zone that they're in. You know, if you're a musician, who've always talked about politics, like Bono was always, for instance, you know, musician talked about politics, maybe just talk about music for a while or something. I don't know the answer to all these things, other than it definitely feels like we're in some sort of flux between two ions or two eras of the old religion and whatever the new religion is, and that possibly the new age and the celebrity and idolizing and possibly the rise of neo-atheism, or whatever word you like for that kind of new atheism thing, then is the you know, the stopgap or the bridge between those two epochs. Hopefully that answers your question, Bractus. Mary Duffy, how do you make time for all your creative work? Merrily, I have to admit, I'm finding it quite hard at the minute. The comic Turbine Syndrome that I'm doing, I was hoping to have 2 chapters out every month, and that immediately became obvious that that's not going to be able to happen, so I had to kind of pull it back to 1 chapter a month until I can get back up to speed. The only way to do it is to really kind of set out and manage your time and timetable your time, and really look at, in a sense, forcing yourself to do these things. That can be hard, and that can very much feel like, you know, when you're kind of forced to creativity. If you're told, you know, you have 2 hours on a Tuesday morning to paint, it's very hard to get into the mode of 2 hours, you know, within those 2 hours to get something fantastic out. David Lynch says that you need 2.5 hours or something like that uninterrupted time before you start something creative to get yourself geared up for that situation. You know, not even taking into painting, it's just, you know, everyone leave you alone, get into the zone, just calm down, get into the kind of creative mode, and then you're going to get something. So if you have limited time, which we all kind of do at this stage, that's quite hard to do. But I do try as much as possible to keep in a kind of creative mode at all time. But it is all about just kind of like Monday, podcast day, Tuesday's podcast day, you know, Wednesday is, and Thursday's video day, Monday and Friday, you know, kind of depending on what else is on, because there's a lot of kind of admin work and stuff like that. But I try to draw every day as much as possible. I don't usually get to do it on a Tuesday though, because the podcast, even though it can be an hour to 2 hours depending on how much me and Spud blabble, you know, there's a bit of editing that has to be done, adding the music, uploading it, converting it for the different kind of places where I add it to, and it can all kind of take a bit of time, and all of that kind of feels like wasted time in some sense, because you don't really have anything to show for it at the end. Well, I mean, you have the podcast, but the podcast itself was just kind of the recording. And then, you know, all the hours after, the admin bit of it kind of feels, I don't know, not unnecessary, because it's obviously necessary, but it feels like you could be doing something more productive with your time. And you probably could by, you know, asking someone else to edit it or whatever, but, you know, I just do it because it's easier for me to do it, and I'm a control freak. But yeah, it's just making time, and it's like at the minute I'm finding it very hard to get time to read, because it's just the way my life is, trying to balance with home life, family life, in the evenings. I used to read an awful lot then in the evenings, and now it's trying to, you know, spend more time with my son and my wife and things like that, rather than just sitting in a corner and reading. But yeah, it's tough. It's just, you have to literally just do it and make yourself do it. And if you have 2 hours to paint and you're not in the mood, just start painting, and just, you capitalize on the time you have. But hard when there's so much going on and there's so much time that you need to spend on other things. Yeah, it's do it, unfortunately. George Soulier, what everyday techniques do you use to tune your magic? Meditation, obviously, George. That's the key to it all. At the minute we're doing the Epoch thing, which is Pete Carroll's book Epoch, which is over in the Discord, and we've gone through the different kind of, we're just in the elements at the minute, and I found that very interesting to look through your life through the lens of a different element. So let's have a look at how I react, how life reacts to me through the earth element and all that encompasses, or through the air. I've talked about it in a previous video. So that's a very helpful way to tune into what's going on around you from a different angle. But you could do it with, like, say, the tarot. Pick a tarot card every day and see the world through the eyes of that tarot card or one of the 40 servants. That's why the introduction ritual, I think, can be quite helpful for people. Of course, it's optional. You don't have to do it. But it kind of also allows you to become familiar with the servant or the card, but also allows you to see your world from the point of view of the card or the servant or that idea or that thought form or servitor, whatever is the word you like. So that's one thing of doing it, is just the belief shifting aspect of chaos magic. We'll look at your life from the outside, and a tarot card, a rune, I Ching, anything that can give you a kind of a somewhat archetypical view on your life can kind of tune you into things that you're not aware of. But one of the other things, it's not really a daily thing, but an overall thing that I think is very helpful, George, to do, is that if you're spending a lot of time with, say, a certain author or a certain teacher or a certain kind of practice, that it is very helpful to pull back at the end of it and allow that to be assimilated into you, and to not, in a sense, give yourself over or surrender to the entire teacher or teaching. And I noticed that for me, there is a point where I kind of do that, where I kind of just have to surrender to it and see it for what it is and just walk through it and just kind of go with it. But there's always a point at the end of it where I have to pull back, pull out, and see what I actually think about it. So while I'm in it, it's kind of, it becomes all-encompassing, and that is the kind of paradigm that I situate myself in. So say at the minute, I'm doing an online retreat with the Magia stuff with Alan Chapman, so very much embedded in all of that kind of thing. But when that's over, there is going to be a period where I'm going to have to assimilate that and go, well, what do I agree with here? What's helpful here? What, how do I bring this into my own life or whatever? Same as if you're spending a lot of time listening to certain podcasts, or, if you're listening, when I was reading an awful lot of Crowley, and just kind of be aware that you are the person, that has to kind of sort all that out for yourself, rather than just giving away your power entirely to other people's ideas, kind of situate them in your own life. Now, there is a kind of caveat with that, is that when you only do kind of book learning yourself, or do, autodidact, which is you learn yourself rather than having a teacher, there is an element of never pushing yourself out of your comfort zones, that you'll only really read or be interested in stuff that you're interested in, so that you're never kind of pushed out of your boundaries. Though when you have a teacher or you're doing an official course, or college, whatever, there's plenty of things that you're kind of forced to read that can expand and help you and all that you wouldn't necessarily do if you were just learning it on your own for the sake of enjoyment. So while there is a thing of make sure not to surround yourself totally to the teachings and all that, make sure that you are pushing yourself and listening to voices and teachings and stuff that not necessarily you disagree with, but that perhaps you find boring, or you don't gravitate towards. It's kind of, if you're not really into Kabbalah, at least spend some time on it anyway, so that it's you understand why you're not into it, and it's not just some block, or you're not doing some sort of, there's not some part of you that just doesn't want to, that maybe is a bit lazy, or just doesn't want to engage with that, or thinks it's too hard, or think if I get into that, then it's going to negate my chaos magic, or it's going to change. Just have a look at all these things, but also at the end of the day, come back to yourself, center yourself, touchstone with yourself, and see where you're at being that you're the magician, you're the center of the universe, and it's your will that is the important thing, with all those things said. So Jason Mendel, what's your take on why so many superstitions treat spirits and other magical beings as if they are idiots? For example, so-and-so spirit doesn't like water, so let's all paint our doors blue so they think it's water and don't come by our house as well. There's precedent for it in the Bible, isn't it? That where they painted the doors so that God wouldn't kill children, which is a horrifying story. The God of the Old Testament, what a nice guy. I think it comes from that it's not that we treat spirits this way. We treat all people like this, all strangers, all outsiders, foreigners, or pilgrims is another word. That all of those people who come from distant lands, we kind of have this tribalist view that everyone is dumb and we're smart. We have it through kind of history as well, where you look at prehistoric, ancient peoples, and we immediately think that they were somehow less intelligent or didn't, they couldn't understand what we understand. Whereas like people people weren't stupid, or people weren't dumb, or people, they didn't believe things because they were, we kind of have this view that when we look down on them, that they were kind of lesser people. They didn't believe what they believed because they were lesser people. They believe what they believe because they have the same brain as us, and that's what they believe. And so I think that kind of translated into spirits and demons, where it was kind of, obviously we're the best, we're intelligent, and so we obviously these things are a bit dumb. But you also get it the opposite way too, that the people are scared of these other beings and feel they're more powerful than and all that. So it kind of works both ways, which you also have with the idea of the outsider, the foreigner, and stuff like that. But why do things so simply, why do any correspondences work though? That's kind of the thing. Like say, paint the door blue, but why does any spirit have any kind of correspondence? Like you look at someone like, I don't know, Ganesha, and there's a number of correspondences. He's the root chakra, red. He's like a road opener. He is a remover of obstacles. He has he's in the Maltesers. He has sandalwood as his incense. All of these things that are correspondence that are related to him. That if you were going to invoke him or evoke him, you would kind of bring that all up. You'd call in all those different energies. Same if you're doing Mars, where you'd have red, or you'd have anger, and you'd bring stuff in that represents all of those things. So those correspondence that you would use to encourage the spirit could also be used against them. So say Mars, if you wanted to go that way, use the opposite thing. So love, the opposite of love and strife. So you use the opposite type of things. So it could be born out of that simple banishment, just that came like, well, how do you get rid of the fire element? Well, you use water, and so people put out a bowl of water to stop the passions in the bedroom or something like that, and then it becomes very simplified, and then it's just a habit, and then it just kind of seems a bit simple because you're putting water out to stop, your kid masturbating or whatever it is. But yeah, that could be one reason. I'm sure there's other reasons. Usually people just thinking lesser of other things. Ghost Pubes. Great name. Is there any pattern of consistency to what magical activities work from certain people and not work for others? Astrological signs, maybe. It comes up an awful lot. And the astrological thing possibly could be true. It depends on how far you want to go with. Not how far you want to go, if you want to believe it or not. The old saying of millionaires don't believe in astrology, but billionaires do. Seems to be something in astrology. There's definitely nothing in the star signs that you see in newspapers, which I think is most people's appreciation of things. But assuming that astrology does have an impact on you, in that why wouldn't the circumstances that you find yourself around at the moment of your birth, why wouldn't that impact you? Then yeah, that probably is a thing. The other kind of idea I always like playing with is that, in like role-playing games where people have a certain type of class. So like some people might be great divinators, that's their class, or some people might be great conjurers because that's their class. Some people can talk to the dead because that's their class, and it's just have these kind of talents towards different things, or rather than, so if you're really, if you're a divination class, no matter how proficient, how much studying you do about talking to the dead probably aren't going to talk to you. But I don't know, again, if I completely believe in talents. I do to a certain extent, but it does also seem that the people who are the most talented are the people who spend the most time doing something. And I know that's not strictly true either, because when you look at children, some people immediately gravitate towards being better at sports than other people. And no matter how much work I ever would have done, I probably never would have been a good basketball player. I doubt I would. I just don't, it's not something that's in me or I have, as an ability. So that talent seems to, I'm kind of, think talent kind of works maybe in a physical sense, but that's kind of in a way, I don't know, lessening physical as a thing, saying that, oh, well, you were just born that way, so that's why you can run fast, whereas I had to work to be able to draw, and that's, I don't like that either. Long shoulders, I don't know the answer. There's definitely an element of beginner's luck for an awful lot of things. People lie an awful lot about their achievements in Magic, more than if someone says something to you, or you see something about people, some sort of magic thing, just, it's more than likely going to be a lie than it's going to be true. Because the amount of just bullshit that, not just in Magic, but in general, but you see it an awful lot in Magic as well, that people kind of up themselves a bit too much. So that can kind of leave people thinking then that they're not as good as other people because they're not getting the results, they're not getting the same kind of thing. So obviously I'm not as good as these people. And especially when you hear stuff like even in the kind of awakening type, enlightenment type meditation stuff as well, you can talk people having awakenings and stuff like that. And when you describe, I've had an awakening and stuff, it sounds quite lofty and great. And, wow, fair dues to you now. But when they start to describe it, you kind of go, yeah, that's happened loads of times it's, to me or whatever. And you kind of go, all right, that's what they're counting as an awakening. I don't count that as an awakening. Maybe it is different. Maybe that their experience is different because they seem to have something that has sustained after them or in some way give them insight. Whereas I have the same as happened to me with the HGA working, where I had, as described, HGA, Holy Guardian Angel, knowledge and conversation, but seems to impact other people differently than mine, than the way it did for me. And that can be a part of it as well, that you could have a divination, you could do a divination, you could be a fantastic divinator, but not really take it too seriously. And therefore you would see it as less a magic gift than someone who takes it very seriously, even though you have the same amount of talent at it. So long and short, I don't know, but there are some ideas around it. Final question. Chiro, do you think there's any truth that Western meditation methods are better suited to Western mind and lifestyle? I really don't, because they're not that dissimilar. I know there was a huge thing in the New Age circle when I was kind of getting into it about the fact of, like the lotus position or the meditation posture, like Zazen and stuff, was more geared towards an Asian type body because they were more flexible or they had a different kind of structure or whatever. That kind of, looking back, seems slightly a bit racist based on that it's, it's, that's for them kind of darkies over there with their different bodies, but us, we're able to sit in a chair and be much more, because again, as I was saying to Jason, we're much more evolved and we don't need this kind of stuff that those people needed. The actual meditation practices themselves, apart from, say, posture or whatever, is very similar. Like, there's the mindfulness, there's the noting, there's the metta, the loving kindness, there's all of these type of things. But an awful lot of our Western meditation stuff has, I suppose, been co-opted from the Eastern, so it's not really, and badly co-opted in the particularly like in the Google type mindfulness, where they separate the, just the very kind of technique, say, of the Buddhist type meditation without any of the philosophy. And the Buddhist thing works because it's as a full package. Whereas if you take it out of context, while it might have some sort of benefit, you're not getting the overall benefit of it. So, do you think there's any truth that Western meditations are better suited to Western mind and lifestyle? No. But, other opinions are available. It's that whole thing of that, we are much more busy. People in ancient India didn't have to, deal with airplanes flying overhead and noise the way we do, so it's okay to wear headphones. And that's rubbish too. Like, everyone had distractions around them no matter what it was. Even if you go to a cave and see how noisy it is when you're sitting there meditating. I'd say you'd be quite surprised with how noisy, no matter where you are, is. But yeah, but if you're interested in it, you can check out Peter Kingsley's stuff and his incubation ideas and about how Western civilization had its own kind of spiritual origin and need and goal and stuff like that, and how it progressed, but that ultimately it's just another version of East and West ideas that are the same idea. So yeah, that's it for now. I hope in some way those answers were helpful, and again reiterate that other opinions are available, and that's just how I feel and how I feel today. I mean, ask me those questions again in 3 months, I might have a completely different answer for you. And yeah, so good people of the internet, I hope your life is going well. I hope things are getting a bit more on track for you. I hope you're feeling safe. I hope you're feeling, a bit positive about the future. And may your best days be ahead, and may you be well. May you be very well.